to the UN, where Antony Blinken is speaking.
Economic. Together, we're sustaining and building on pressure on the Kremlin and its enablers, including with unprecedented sanctions. Together, we're bolstering the defense of NATO itself, including by hardening our eastern flank. Just over the past 48 hours, I've had an opportunity to meet with my NATO counterparts. For the first time ever, foreign ministers from the United States Indo-Pacific allies, Australia, Japan, New Zealand, the Republic of Korea, participated as a group in a NATO ministerial. Ministers from Georgia, from Finland, from Sweden, and Ukraine also took part, as did the European Union's High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Josep Borrell. In addition, I met with my counterparts from the G7, the world's leading democratic economies. The participation of all of these allies and partners highlights the remarkably broad coalition of countries from around the world that are united in standing with Ukraine and against the Russian government's aggression. Countries that recognize Moscow isn't just attacking one country, but the entire international rules-based order. The sickening images and accounts coming out of Bucha and other parts of Ukraine have only strengthened our collective resolve and unity. In Bucha, a woman described how Russian soldiers forced her and around 40 other people to gather in a small square. The soldiers brought 5 young men there and ordered them to kneel. Then, a Russian soldier shot one of them in the back of the head. He turned to the people gathered and said of the victim, and I quote, "This is dirt. We're here to cleanse you from the dirt." That's just one person Russian soldiers killed in Bucha. According to Ukraine's Prosecutor General, they've already found 410 bodies of dead civilians in that one town alone. And it's not just Bucha. In Mudugin, the body of the 50-year-old mayor, Ola Suhenko, was found in a shallow grave, along with her hands bound, alongside the bodies of her husband and son. They were last seen alive, being taken away by Russian soldiers. In Kharkiv, a woman was sheltering in a school with her 5-year-old daughter and neighbors when a Russian soldier picked her out and forced her to accompany him to an empty classroom. He cut her face and neck with a knife, threatened to kill her, and raped her repeatedly at gunpoint. With each day, more and more credible reports of rape, killings, torture are emerging. And for every Bucha, there are many more towns Russia has occupied and more towns it is still occupying, places where we must assume Russian soldiers are committing more atrocities right now. Here's what we're doing together with our allies and partners to stop this aggression, to stand with Ukraine and hold accountable those who are responsible. First, we continue to work in close coordination with allies and partners to raise the costs on the Russian government for its aggression. Yesterday, we announced new sanctions on Russia's largest financial institution and one of its largest private banks, on 21 members of Russia's National Security Council, on the adult children of President Putin. President Biden also signed an executive order prohibiting new investment in Russia by any person in the United States. The European Union is also actively considering robust new measures, including bans on Russian coal, on Russian vessels accessing EU ports, on transactions with 4 key financial institutions. Second, the United States continues to work at an unprecedented pace to help Ukraine defend itself. Last Friday, the Department of Defense announced $300 million in new security assistance. On Tuesday, I authorized an additional $100 million to meet Ukraine's urgent needs for more Javelin anti-armor systems. This will bring total U.S. security assistance to Ukraine since the beginning of Russia's invasion in February to over $1.7 billion and over $2.4 billion since January of last year. More than 30 countries have joined us in delivering security assistance to Ukraine, aid that our Ukrainian partners are putting to very effective use, as we see in the Kremlin's retreat from Kyiv and other Ukrainian cities and towns. Today, I met again with my colleague and friend Dmytro Kuleba, Ukraine's foreign minister, to discuss how we can continue to provide Ukraine's courageous defenders with what they need to keep pushing Russia back. Third, we continue to provide significant aid to address the acute humanitarian crisis caused by the Kremlin's war. More than a quarter of Ukraine's population, over 11 million people, have been displaced. That's roughly equal to displacing the entire population of Belgium, the country we're in now, in the space of 6 weeks. President Biden announced that the U.S. government is prepared to provide more than $1 billion in new humanitarian assistance to those affected by Russia's war of aggression. That comes on top of $293 million we provided in 2022 alone to vulnerable communities in the region, including to neighboring countries that have opened their arms and opened their homes to 4 million Ukrainian refugees. The global harm caused by the Kremlin's aggression is growing, including the disruption it's caused to the production and distribution of wheat in Ukraine, on which so many countries rely, something that I heard about and saw firsthand just a week ago when we were in, among other places, Morocco and Algeria. In Africa, where a quarter of the population is now facing a food security crisis, Russia's war of choice has raised the costs of basic staples, worsening the hardship that people were already feeling. So at the G7, we discussed in some detail ways that we can mitigate the war's impact on the most vulnerable people around the world. Fourth, the United States continues to work methodically to collect, to preserve, to analyze evidence of atrocities, and to make this information available to the appropriate bodies. We're supporting a multinational team of experts that's assisting a war crimes unit set up by Ukraine's Prosecutor General with a view toward eventually pursuing criminal accountability. These efforts will also ensure that Russia cannot escape the verdict of history. Just moments ago, as I was coming into this room, I learned that UN member states had come together once again to condemn Russia's aggression and suspend it from the Human Rights Council. A country that's perpetrating gross and systematic violations of human rights should not sit on a body whose job it is to protect those rights. Today, a wrong was righted. Fifth, we discussed ways we can shore up the collective security of our NATO allies. As the President has said, we will defend every inch of NATO territory. We now have 100,000 U.S. troops in Europe. NATO's established 4 new multinational battle groups in Romania, in Hungary, Bulgaria, Slovakia, in addition to those already in Poland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, to reinforce our eastern flank. Sixth, we discussed the additional support that NATO allies can provide to partners like Bosnia and Herzegovina and Georgia, who are most vulnerable to Russian aggression and threats, from cybersecurity to combating disinformation. Finally, we discussed at length a new NATO strategic concept. This is the public blueprint for how the alliance will continue to safeguard transatlantic security in what is a rapidly changing landscape. We'll release that document at the NATO summit in Madrid in June. President Putin thought, among other things, that he would weaken and divide NATO. This strategic concept will make clear that NATO is in fact stronger, it's more united, it's more capable of addressing 21st century threats. And I can say unequivocally from my discussions with many colleagues here in recent days, colleagues from around the globe, the revulsion at what the Russian government is doing is palpable. There's a greater determination than ever to stand with Ukraine, to shore up and revitalize the international order that Moscow is trying to upend, to bring to bear even greater costs on the Russian government, to ensure that people are held accountable for their crimes. Thank you.